All right. Good afternoon and happy Tuesday to everyone here. We are so grateful that you are spending your lunch hour with us. My name is Mallory Workman, and I am the Community Relations Specialist at the Delaware County Board of Developmental Disabilities. For those of you that might not be familiar, we are wrapping up Developmental Disability Awareness Month here in March, and we have had a wonderful and robust series of programs to show the folks that we serve and the greater community all the wonderful things that are happening regarding inclusion and access in the Central Ohio area. And today we are broadening a little bit further up into the Cleveland area. As our finale for the DD Awareness Month, we have three wonderful representatives from Ohio sports teams here talking about their access and inclusion initiatives. We have Matt Grimes, who is the head of engagement in belonging with the Cleveland Guardians, and Quan, who is the manager of engagement and belonging at the Cleveland Guardians. First of all, a little side note, I love that your department is called engagement and belonging because I feel like it is just so widespread and so inclusive and could mean so many different things. So I'm really excited to hear what you two have to share today. And we also have Mackenzie Williams, who is the Director of Event Services with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So the three of these wonderful folks today are going to just be talking about how they make their specific sport, their specific team, and their specific events more inclusive and more accessible to not only the folks that we serve at Delaware County Board of DD, but to all folks that want to enjoy sports in their recreational times. So I am going to pass it off first to our guests from up north, Matt and Quan. And if you two want to just talk about all the wonderful things that you have going on at Progressive Field, we would love for you to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mallory. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here today. This is Quan. I'm here with Matt, and we're going to just start by taking a step back and just giving you some high-level overview of the organization and kind of how we got to our work in accessibility. So here at the Guardians, we have what we call our purpose, mission, and beliefs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our purpose and our mission here, because that's kind of what guides us all in everything that we do. So our purpose is to unite and inspire our city with the power of team. Again, that's to unite and inspire our city with the power of team. And so wanted to focus there on the unite and inspire our city part there. And then with our mission is to win the World Series while creating a compelling fan experience. So that's the compelling fan experience part there that we want to hone in on too. So unite and inspire our city, create a compelling fan experience. Well, how do you actually do that, right? That sounds great. That's a really cute purpose mission, but how do you actually take that a step farther? And so how we do that is a framework that we call Guards for All. So Guards for All is kind of broken up into three different buckets. And that is our teammates or the people who work for the Guardians, our fans, and our city. So using those three different buckets, we take our purpose and mission and take it a step farther. How do we actually unite and inspire our city and create a compelling fan experience while keeping everyone in mind? So Guards for All is the way that we do that. Ideally, we're helping everybody be a part of our game, whether that's being at the ballpark or just being a fan at home. And then we're also making them feel like they belong while they're here. And that is for our fans, that's for the people who work here, and then also creating a connection with our city. So with all of that in mind, that's kind of how what came of our accessibility efforts is all of that. And how do we create that compelling fan experience for everybody? How do we unite and inspire everybody within our city? So that's kind of the baseline of how we got to our work in accessibility. Anything to add?
No, I would add thanks. So everyone, Matt Grimes here, he, him pronouns, and I get to work with Quan every day to think about how do we make our organization better for everyone. If I take an even further step back on our journey, we really dove deep into this work around inclusion and access following the summer of 2020, when there were a lot of racial uprisings happening across the country. It happened to also be at the intersection of when we decided to change our name from Indians to Guardians. And so there were a lot of tailwinds that were really pushing us to really be retrospective and ask ourselves, are we living up to that North Star that Quan mentioned, our purpose to unite and inspire? And it took a lot of hard and honest conversations with our leaders and our owners to say, no, we were not. We were falling short, particularly when it came to our Native American and Indigenous partners, but extended that conversation beyond looking at other historically marginalized groups. And one of those groups was the experience of fans with disabilities who come to our ballpark. And so, under that backdrop, really started to lean into the question, what would it take to be great in this space? We realized there's a lot of work ahead, and we put a lot of work into becoming a ballpark that is truly accessible. And we're excited to share more about how we did that. But I wanted to provide a little bit of that context and background as we get into what does accessibility mean here at Progressive Field. It means a number of different things. As Quan mentioned, we want to create a compelling fan experience. I think what's missing from our mission statement is for all. So regardless of who you are, who you love, what you believe, what you look like, what your ability level is, we want to make sure that when fans leave our ballpark after a game, they feel like they've had the best time here and that we've proactively removed as many barriers as we could. When I started 6 seasons ago, there were no dedicated people in the organization thinking about things through the lens of universal design and through the lens of inclusion. Now, we're fortunate to have some great colleagues who are partners in this work, but our office exists to be a centralized resource and thought partner to everyone in our ballpark who is doing the great work to create that compelling fan experience. What that transformed into a few years ago was our first ever Disability Pride Night, which I'll let Quan share a little bit more about in a second. But that was really the catalyst for us to use as an opportunity, not just to sell tickets or to celebrate, but to learn and educate. Quan and I oversee a portfolio of what we call community nights at the ballpark. And these are opportunities to bring fans to Progressive Field who may not historically engaged with our ballpark for a number of different reasons. At the same time, we just wrapped up a 3-year, multi-million-dollar renovation project where we had the unique opportunity to look at some of the spaces that we were changing through the lens of inclusion. And I think that's really what helped accelerate the impact we were having on the accessibility space. And now today, if you come to Progressive Field, you are coming to the only ballpark in the United States where individuals in wheelchairs or mobility devices can sit at field level, not 20 rows back in the seats, but actually at field level if they so choose. So just one example, but I'll let Quan talk about our sort of flagship initiative or program, our Disability Awareness Night, and then we can talk about what we learned from that before passing it to our friends at the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, so as Matt mentioned, we have our Disability Pride Night, and what I like to call these community celebrations are ballpark takeovers. So essentially everything that's happening in the ballpark that we have control over, so everything that's not baseball, we try to incorporate something from whatever community we are spotlighting that night. So specifically for Disability Pride, we like to bring in our partners to help us build these nights. So that can look like a lot of different things. Just last year on the concourse, we had a performance by Dancing Wheels out in right field before the game starts. These types of things are not only to spotlight those groups, but to also get our fans, our general fan base, to experience something they may have never experienced before. Maybe they didn't think that someone in a wheelchair could be in a dance group, but we show them that that's possible and spotlight those groups. So that's a lot of different stuff happening around the ballpark. Usually it looks like some sort of what we call activation or thing happening. So a performance, or maybe there's an art installation or a speaker or something like that. And then we will also do some pregame festivities too to really spotlight folks in the community who are doing the work. I'm trying to remember who we had last year. Oh, I think we had Miss Wheelchair Ohio throughout our first delivered the game ball. And so, yeah, we try to uplift those folks who are doing the work in the community and give them the platform that they deserve. But that's kind of what those nights look like. Is there anything you would add?
I'd say what started as an opportunity to celebrate, as I mentioned, turned into an opportunity to learn and grow. We also realized that disability culture is not a monolith. And so it's really challenging at times to make sure we're being inclusive of all types of abilities in planning these nights. And I want to double down on what Kwon said. One of my favorite quotes is from a disability awareness advocate who says, "Nothing about us without us is for us. Nothing about us without us is for us." For us, it's not good enough just to plan these evenings and events.
Mhm.
We want to make sure that we're working with community partners up here in Northeast Ohio. We've got a really good relationship with the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, the Cleveland Speech and Hearing Center, the Cleveland Sight Center. So we make sure that we're bringing in those partners early on to help plan what these nights could look like. For me, with the goal of ensuring that we are using them as an opportunity to hear from our fans, learn and grow. We play 81 home games here at Progressive Field and believe that every game should be universally accessible.
Mhm.
These are real opportunities for us to both learn and again spotlight and celebrate communities that are often forgotten here at the ballpark. The last thing that I'll share as we think about what those learnings are, um, we try our best to take action, knowing that we can't boil the ocean and there's still a lot of work to be done, but some
Mhm.
things that we're really excited and proud of. We partnered with Culture City a few years ago to install a sensory room in the ballpark, and it was great. And when I started, no one was using it. And so, coming out of our first ever Disability Pride Night, really leaned into the fact that we needed to do better communication and give that an uplift. So, we were able to secure a grant for $13,000. We refreshed that space. We now have more signage and marketing to invite fans who may need that space to use it. Sensory bags are also part of our partnership with Culture City. And so, once again, it was about educating the larger fan base. How do I go about getting a sensory bag if I need noise canceling headphones or fidget toys or fidget spinners? You can go to any of our fan service centers in the ballpark to request a sensory bag. But again, what we found is that they weren't being refreshed or replenished. So a lot of what we lean into is just educating the larger staff and
Mhm.
fan base on what's available. If you go to our accessibility webpage now, there's information there. We created a note before you go sensory story. We've partnered with the Cuyahoga County Board and are working to have a universal changing table installed at the ballpark. And a lot of just fan education on disability etiquette and awareness training coming out of last year. We're now partnering with a disability consultant, and small boutique organization called Ingenuity Unlimited to really help us check our blind spots and making sure that we are not missing anything. So there's some examples we could go on and on, but we're
Mhm.
excited to also learn from Mackenzie Williams on the call. So we'll pass it over to her and happy to take some questions later.
So I actually have a question, sorry, before Mackenzie. First of
Yep.
all, you two are speaking my love language. Like everything that we suggest to folks that reach out to us for how they can make their services and their experiences more accessible, you all have like marked every checkbox. So I am so giddy to hear. That's why I turned my camera off because I'm like furiously scribbling like notes in my notebook here. But I had a quick question before we pass it over to Mackenzie. As I said, I just love that you are not only recognizing and celebrating our DD population, but that you are also, recognizing so many marginalized communities and making your games and your experience more accessible for everybody. So my question is, how do you learn or how do you decide about these groups that you're going to celebrate? Is this from fan feedback? Is just this just from your own lived experiences? I'm just curious as to how you get started with these types of special inclusion nights.
It's a great question. So every decade or so in professional sport, at least in Major League Baseball, and I think it's true with the NFL and the NBA, teams undergo what we call a fan segmentation study. We lean really heavily into data and data-driven decisions here. And one of the most impactful points of data that we have are who's come to the ballpark? Who are the fans that come here? And when I started a few years ago, we were up for renewal. And what I would hear early on is this moniker. It was sort of common language, and I didn't understand it. My background's also in education, so I spent 10 years in the classroom before joining the world of professional sport. But everyone would talk about Family Man Phil, and I didn't understand who or what Family Man Phil meant. But that was sort of the archetype of a fan who was coming to the ballpark, um, call it, 5 to 10 years ago. And that sort of demographic was that Family Man Phil, a little more affluent, lives in the suburb, has a family, comes to our ballpark to watch baseball. When he comes to the ballpark, he has his scorecard, he knows stats about all of our players, and he has a really great time. We acknowledge that baseball is changing and growing in the game of baseball. So we can't cater our experience to single fans anymore. In fact, in so much the renovations that referenced earlier, while most ballparks are putting more seats in to generate revenue, we took seats out of our ballpark because what we learned in our most recent fan segmentation is that we have different what's called jobs to be done. And people aren't coming to our ballpark just to watch baseball anymore. And so coming out of that fan segmentation study, which is both qualitative and quantitative, surveyed over 2,000 fans. I got to participate in focus groups. We have what we call our fan segments, and some of those segments are social media stars. What we learned is that we have a lot of fans who come to our ballpark to get really good pictures to post on Instagram. Family or connection cravers, right? We have young professionals and people who come to our ballpark who never even look at the gameplay at our field, who want to come to maybe meet someone or to connect with fans who are new to Cleveland and use it as a social opportunity. Memory makers. We have a lot of families who come to make memories and go to our kids' club area. And we still have our longtime loyal fans, our family man Phils. Um, and so with these segments, we were able to finally ask the question, who's not coming to the ballpark? Everyone was so focused on who's coming to the ballpark. Juan and I really took a step back to figure out who's not coming. And in doing that, we realized that there were several groups, unsurprisingly, that have been historically marginalized in other industries who were not engaging with our audience, which was perplexing to us, particularly some of the segments like the Latino community, right? Over 50% of our main roster players trace their roots to Latin America, and yet fans aren't necessarily coming to our ballpark. But when Quan and I are out in the community at various festivals and events, all we hear is, "Oh, we're such huge Guardians fans." So there was a disconnect. So Quan and I have spent the last few years really getting out to understand what is preventing people from coming to the ballpark. And that is what really drove our community nights and the communities that we want to uplift. Part of it does have to go with representation of our players and the growth and internationalization. We're playing the Dodgers right now. I think Shohei Ohtani is pitching against us tonight in LA. But there's a huge growth in the Asian community. And so we have an Asian American Pacific Islander night at the ballpark. So specific to the disability community, I think that's one thing we learned in partnering with the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I would see on, the games that we attend, several fans who had different needs that we weren't meeting. And so I think that's really what drove us to focus in. And it's been sequential. So we started our LGBTQ plus Pride Night in year one, then we added API night and Hispanic Heritage Night. I think disability awareness was relatively new. We're going into our third Disability Pride Night this year. And who's to say what the next community is going to be that we seek to partner with and invite them into our ballpark.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I felt like, Matt, you were kind of targeting me when you said that you have so many fans that come for the experience. My mom will watch every single Cincinnati Reds baseball game on TV. That's how diehard of a baseball fan she is. But I'm one of those people that goes for the experience. There's nothing that beats being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, that just electric feeling, and that passion that you really feel being in that community. So thank you both. I am now going to pass over, and I just wanted to let everyone on the call know that I do have the chat open. So if you have any questions for our wonderful presenters today, feel free to ask any questions. We'll also have some time for Q&A at the end. But I now want to hand it off to Mackenzie Williams, who, as I said, is the Director of Event Services with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I actually discovered Mackenzie when I was Googling like inclusive sports, and I saw that I believe either earlier this year or last year, she was on a podcast. I believe it was with O'Callaghan with the Cincinnati Reds, talking about some of their initiatives that they are doing at Nationwide Arena in trying to make hockey a more inclusive experience. So, Mackenzie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, that was you guys had a lot of good information. So that's a hard follow-up. But yeah, so as Mallory said, I'm the director of event services here at the Columbus Blue Jackets at Nationwide Arena. So I'm more on the building side of how our organization works. So I do every event, so not just hockey, but sports. We do concerts, comedy shows, we do the rodeo, so a little bit of everything. So sometimes when I am thinking about the accessibility stuff, it is a lot more than just how do we get them to hockey games. So it can be a wide range. But I've been here now for 6 years. This is my going on almost 7 years. And I started right before COVID. So there was a weird start to my career. And once we came back, there was a lot of different things to do. And so now in the last, 3 or 4 years, I've been able to actually focus on how to get more people to our arena. So my kind of function here at the arena is I staff the guest services staff. I also work with security. So I'm a bit different function than over at the Guardians, but we all kind of have the same initiative, right? Which is the guest experience as a whole. And my background, I actually grew up with multiple people in my close family that did have developmental disabilities. So I think about it quite a bit, and I'm in that space a lot. And I think in my personal life, and I think now I'm able to actually merge the two of what I know from that personal experience into what I do for my job. And it's an ever growing space, and it's a lot of information. There's a lot of information to have and to see what project is next and what's immediately needed, and what are we not thinking about. And my journey kind of started with our sensory room here at the arena. So that was kind of the first big project that I took on in the accessibility space. And I worked with a couple groups here. We had a group called A Kid Again that we do partner with for Blue Jackets games. They have a big game every year where they bring all the families. And through working with them, that kind of snowballed into everything else that we've been doing lately. They introduced us to a lot of different groups. For the sensory room, we worked with Bridgeway Academy, who took us through like their spaces and what might be needed and things to think about, so that when we created that space, we knew exactly what would be needed. And then we actually ended up being able to bring in a sponsor with Safe Light for our sensory room. So it turned into the Safe Light Safe Spot, which has been really great because working with another company who really cares about the space and really cares about the function of the space, we've been able to kind of keep evolving it and making sure that it's functioning in the best way possible. And it does help with, the worst part about some of this is the talking the money part, which, it can be hard. It's nice when you have buy-in, which we do have a lot of, and it sounds like my friends at the Guardians also have a lot of buy-in, which is great. But getting those sponsors was a big part of being able to keep that space ever growing, which has been really lovely. We keep adding stuff. We just added, a nice TV in there because we heard people saying they wanted to still be able to watch the game, and we added all these things. And then one of our other big projects that we did was we did get some of the universal changing tables. So through the A Kid Again group, they introduced us to a group called Changing Spaces, Ohio. And they took us through the need. It was something that I never even I wasn't aware of. So like learning, what the people that need that space go through and kind of the not good options that they have in other places. We were like, okay, we have to get these. And so that one was a project that we did and immediately put in, and we have them, and it's been a game changer for a lot of families that visit our arena. So it's been so lovely. And then kind of more recently in like the last year or so, I think it was last summer that I went to the Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities conference. We're actually at MetQuan. We were on the panel together with our friends from the Reds. So we did that, and that kind of opened my eyes to a lot of other things, and looking at, right now we were in a bit more of like a reactive space where someone would need something, it wouldn't be there, and we were like, okay, we failed them, let's now do this. And I feel like now we're kind of in a proactive space where we're actually thinking ahead to what can we already get, so that when these people come, they already have everything they need, and we're not going to fail that first time that they're here. We're going to succeed, and we're going to, you know, meet the higher expectations. And that's been a real game changer in kind of my mindset about everything that we've been doing with accessibility. And then, yes, I was on the podcast for Ocali, which we talked a lot about sensory room and the sensory kits and all that good stuff. So I've been kind of working in these spaces and now talking to all of you. So it's been a very big learning experience to see how that all can come together in our arena. Because at the base of what I do here, the guests are the most important part. And it's not just the guests that we already service. And my friends already touched on it. It's who else can we get into our arena? Who else can we service? Who else can come? And what's stopping them, and learning all that stuff. And it's a big undertaking to try to get all of that information. We do surveys. We look at social media for like all the different groups that we have. We use our resources of the community groups that we've met to figure out, okay, who still is unsure that they can come and stay for the whole time. Because that's an important part too, is we don't just want to get them here and be like, okay, we got you here, great. But want to make sure that once they're here, they're able to fully enjoy every aspect, feel like they belong, feel welcome, and continue on that path. I think there's still a long way to go. For anybody, like the work's never done. And so it's like, you finish one project and you're like, great, we have it so good. Now it's like, okay, now moving on, like, let's keep going. And so getting that continuous buy-in from our leadership teams and figuring out, okay, how do we keep going? But it's been a great experience. I'm happy to talk to all of you and meet everybody. I have so many like places now that I need to visit to like see what everybody else is doing, because that's a big thing I think in any of our sports places, is we all kind of go to each other and see, okay, what are they doing? What are we doing? What can we bring back? So I'm excited to keep learning and keep growing and continue on.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to pivot now, since we both heard overviews from our wonderful teams here. I am going to highlight both of you. I just realized that this is a feature, or sorry, spotlight. So all three of you are now spotlighted on everyone's screen. I have a few questions, but if anyone that is participating today has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. First of all, my supervisor, Chase, is on vacation, but I so badly wish that he was here, because the fact that both of you have the universal changing tables is absolutely amazing. We actually do partner as well with Changing Spaces Ohio. And through that partnership, I have learned so much from families about events that their children or their loved ones have not been able to attend because of personal hygiene or restroom needs. And as someone who personally does not need a universal changing table, it was something that I never really thought about. So I really do appreciate those initiatives that you all have taken. So two of my questions, and I guess they're kind of they go in tandem, is both of you talked about like partnerships and specifically corporate partnerships to maybe fund some of these projects because things do cost money. So how do you find these partners? Like what's your approach? Do you know, already have community partners that you know are inclusive and supportive of these causes? And then Mackenzie, you specifically mentioned buy-in from leadership at Nationwide Arena. How do you go about presenting these ideas to secure that buy-in and advocating for these changes and these enhancements to your spaces?
Yeah, so as I said, like we worked with a kid again who was already a kind of partner with the Blue Jackets. So a lot of times those relationships are kind of already there, but maybe not in the way that we needed them. So I think the first big thing was just networking with those people and making sure that they knew like, hey, we're here to help. Like, please give us your ideas. Like, you know, we want to make sure that our partnership continues to work and it's not just kind of, you know, the same note. And I really have realized through this whole experience how much those that are in the accessibility inclusion space kind of talk to one another. So it really was like one person is able to introduce me to like 5 other groups that I could work with on different projects. So it really was like I almost barely needed to like go and like really seek people. It was like once you kind of get in that space and you're meeting these, like they'll come to you and they'll keep going on and they'll introduce you to this person. And then if you express interest in another area, they'll be like, oh great, I have the perfect person for that. So a lot of those relationships happened really, really naturally, which was nice. And then once they're established, it kind of just keeps going from there. And now being in these spaces of, you know, going to conferences and doing the podcast and doing these webinars, like you just keep meeting people and it on and on and on it goes. And then for us, like getting the buy-in from leadership and kind of securing that part, I'm very fortunate that it's been pretty easy, meaning like our leadership understands the need for this kind of thing. I think it helps that I am very passionate about it. So like when I come to present my idea, I have a real passion for it. I want to make sure that it gets done. And I think they see that and they understand. I also think it's important for me where like I have all the facts, all the like data that I can get. I am a bit of like a perfectionist in that area of wanting to be like, okay, like here's 1,000 reasons. And half the time when I come with these ideas, I don't have to give the 1,000 reasons that I have, but I have them just in case. So it's been nice to be able to just kind of be like, hey, I think we need this. And they trust me enough, know that I'm in this space enough to be like, okay, let's do it. And if we need that extra bit of buy-in from someone else or, you know, help with financials or anything like that, we're able to make those connections and get it and figure out how to get it done. And even if it's, you know, there might be different phases that you're able to get done in certain things. And I think it's better to maybe get something going, maybe not like a full thing, a full project. If you can just start it and little bit by little bit, it does help in that way.
Yeah, I think we'd echo a lot of what you said, Mackenzie. Specifically speaking to like the sponsored by a corporation part, our community celebrations, like we talked about, our disability pride. We're fortunate that Nestle is actually our presenting sponsor for those nights. And that kind of comes with a relationship that we're able to build with our corporate partnerships team here, where they are helping connect the dots on what matters to these organizations that they're working with and what we have to offer here. So that's been huge in bolstering the success of those nights. also just having the nights in general, kind of like you said, Mackenzie, once you're in, like you just find all the people. So with our disability Pride Night, I think last year was our first year of doing a resource fair on the concourse before the game began. And that was different nonprofit organizations who are in the area doing the work, getting a chance to give their spiel to fans walking by, and just kind of get more presence within our ballpark. So that was a huge opportunity too, to connect with a lot of organizations that could help us. And that's a big thing that we focus on in the relationships that we do have, is that we don't want it to be transactional. We don't want people to just come in for one night and leave. We want there to be something more with that. So one of those organizations is the Autism Personal Coach. And the owner of that is also the guy who runs the Neurodiverse Culture Fest, which happens here Northeast Ohio area every year. And so we also started to go to that and table at that event and meet more people there. And so that snowball effect just keeps on going. And then we just kind of circle back with everybody and try to build something together. And I think you really touched on that a lot, Mackenzie. So yeah, I think it's such a great community that brings you in and understands that we're all learning and we'll all keep learning.
Wonderful. I do have a little shout out, Quan and Matt. I'm actually coming to Progressive Field in May for my first Guardians game in Progressive Field. And they play the Reds. However,
Oh,
I feel like after this webinar, I'm gonna have to wear Guardians gear
you
because
might.
I just texted a friend on the call and said, "Am I a Guardians fan now?" Because all that you are doing is amazing. Mom, I'm
Nah, the
sorry
Reds
she's
are
on the
good too.
call. My mom's on the call, and I'm sorry. As a diehard Reds fan, she probably is like crying that her daughter is making these statements. But we do have a few questions in the chat, and I'm going to start off with one from one of our SSAs here at the board. So Sean is asking, obviously you all have put so much thought into making your arenas and your spaces inclusive for everybody. His question is about public transportation or getting to and from your spaces. So he asks if if accessible public transportation is needed to get to the stadium, where can someone find that information? Do you have any resources or have you uh, had that need arise when planning these types of events and inclusion?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we've been cognizant of. And I think one of the advantages of working for a professional sports team is that we're naturally able to have connections with civic leaders and city councilors as well. We're also fortunate, if you've not been to Progressive Field, we actually share a landlord and a concourse with the Cleveland Cavaliers, so can share a lot of thought partnership and resources there. When it comes to transportation specifically, again, on our accessibility webpage and our Know Before You Go guides, we do encourage people to use rideshare or the RTA, the Regional Transit Authority, who I think does a really good job of providing access for individuals who may need extra support in transportation. But I think one of the sort of wins coming out of this, and this is why we talk a lot about universal design, because we did not go into these conversations with, a wheelchair user in mind, but I think reaping the benefits.
Mhm.
We realize that just wayfinding and egress and ingress and traffic flows in general were not great for the general fan experience, in so much as that we actually took over ownership and operation of our primary garage, so that we can make some of those improvements. But even if you come to Progressive Field, or if you came to Progressive Field in the past, there were a lot of two-way streets. It didn't really work. So we work with our downtown improvement district and again, the city of Cleveland and government officials to actually transition some of the streets into one ways to make that traffic flow better. And again, that was a general to make it better for all fans. What we're finding though is that it's easier for folks to drop off wheelchairs closer to the ballpark
Mhm.
to reduce some of that travel time. So it is certainly not perfect. And I think the best and nearest RTA stop is still, quite a walk away or a drive away, but it goes back to the previous question around partnership when we're able to convene and use our superpower to convene and share what these challenges are. I think some of the solutions tend to be universal and beneficial for many people.
Yeah, I would kind of piggyback off what they're saying is with us, we're pretty fortunate to have some pretty good public transportation down here with our Coda buses. They do have lots of drop-offs right around the arena, which is nice. I know they also have some different services that people, if they if they have an accessibility device, can get in their own transportation. We actually have a few people on our team that use that service with Coda because we have a few wheelchair users on our team. We also have a lot of our parking garages are pretty close to the arena. We're pretty fortunate in that way where it's not like you're not parking a mile away to come to the arena, which is really nice. We have multiple garages within like not even a block of our entrances. So we are pretty fortunate in that way. I think as we've kind of said with all of our initiatives is it could always be better, always. And especially once you start getting outside of like the space that we can really control, it gets a lot harder. So I think we have good options, but I think always it could be better. There's probably different things that we could do to help that. But I would say through my talks with people, it's usually that's not mainly the focus of the folks that I've talked to in the disability space. A lot of them don't always find it hard to get here. It's mostly once they're here what they need access to. So I think we are a little bit fortunate there.
Wonderful. So we do have a comment. One of our participants says she can attest to the Guardian staff for taking care of her when she had a broken foot. They were able to wheelchair me from the entrance to her seat and back. It was a busy night, and yet they made her feel loved and attended to. So we're getting some positive affirmations here in the chat. We have two other questions that I'm going to kind of combine because they are asking similar things. So Jess has a child with sensory sensitivity needs, but she would like for him to experience the wonderful spaces that we're talking about today. Now, I know that you both have briefly mentioned maybe your sensory rooms or some of the resources that you have available for individuals that might need these extra resources. But could you talk a little bit more about that? And then Sean is asking if these resources, I know Mackenzie, you said your umbrella is over all of Nationwide's events. And so are these resources available for events outside of your Guardians games or your Blue Jackets games? And how would fans access those?
Yeah, so for us, all of our accessibility spaces are available for every single event that we have, no matter what it is. We do find varying degrees of usage of those depending on, I would say like our Blue Jackets games, we probably get the most usage, especially out of our sensory room and our sensory kits. And I think that's more just because since we've partnered with the Blue Jackets, there's a lot more messaging about those spaces. Those events also are more geared towards family, which is where we see kind of the most need for it. Whereas, if we're having a rock show, there's usually not as many people using those spaces. But yes, so they are available no matter what. So we have the sensory room, which we've put up on our club level, which is actually like probably one of the most quiet spots in the arena because it's actually technically behind if there was a stage. So it's in a nice little corner, but still very accessible right off an elevator that takes you right there. So it's not like you're hunting around for it. And we actually staff someone right outside of the sensory room. So that way if people, when we know that people are going there, they can greet them, show them the space, let them know, how long they can take, if they need anything, all that good stuff. So, and that is always staffed for our events. We also have our sensory kits, which are at our guest services desk. We have a guest service desk on our main concourse, then our upper concourse. And so those are also available no matter what. We also have it where, because like in our sensory kits, we have the headphones, we have a lap pad, we have the fidget toys, all that kind of good stuff. You can also, if you just need the headphones, we have that available too. That's probably, those get the most usage during concerts, is just people looking to have those headphones. Because sometimes they just don't quite realize maybe how loud it can get. At Blue Jackets games, our biggest opponent is the cannon, which is a good thing, because if it's going off, that means that we're scoring. But it's also the most jarring thing. If you've ever heard it, it is loud. So that is one of the reasons that we get probably the most play on those. But yes, those are always available. We track how much it gets used, so that we can kind of see from event to event how many people are using it, and maybe on events where we know that it's going to get a lot of usage, making sure that we have other options available, things like that. But they're a great space. Over to you guys.
Mackenzie, it's funny that you mentioned the cannon, because when my husband and I attend games, he always turns to me as soon as they score and reminds me to cover my ears, because without fail, it will throw me off every single time. So I appreciate that point out, because that is something I experience regularly.
I still jump sometimes.
And we have a similar battle. For home runs, we shoot off some fireworks. So same thing there. I think that's both the beauty and the pain of our game, is we can't control it. So we can't control when fans want to get rowdy and cheer really loud. We can't control I wish we could control when our team hits home runs, because I would tell them to hit more of them. But same deal here, is that fireworks are going to go off and all that. I think our superpower when it comes to a sensory experience, even prior to getting to the ballpark, is talking with our fan services team. They do the best job that they possibly can in meeting the needs of our fans. And so calling in and talking to someone about kind of what your needs might be, they can help you figure out, the best place to sit that maybe is closer to the sensory room, or help you figure out how to get a sensory bag, or maybe pick a day where it's not going to be as busy at the ballpark. Those are, I think, some steps before even getting here that can definitely improve the sensory experience. I want to say in our Know Before You Go, it might even point out when fireworks happen, because they'll happen at the end of the national anthem, and they'll happen for our home runs and at the end of the game. So pointing out those things too, so that you can expect when those are going to happen, is helpful.
Yeah, and I would also add, in terms of just flexibility in policy, right? So if you come to our ballpark, you can scan out. So for whatever reason you needed to go back to your vehicle, or take a walk, you can do that and come back. I also think, and this is a big learning for me, as we once again think about the business of baseball, just some of those intangible benefits. So we have our ballpark pass, for example, which is a monthly pass that anyone can buy that gets you access to our ballpark for any home game. It's $49.99. So those flexible options, I also think, create opportunities if for whatever reason, you're coming with your child and they're really struggling that day, come back another game, right? Try again. We try to make access to the ballpark very affordable, particularly for families, because we realize things come up and we want to make sure that everyone gets that experience. So even if you can't attend an entire game, we encourage people to break it up, right? Maybe come for the pregame activation to one game, and the second come when the game started, so you can see sort of that end user experience looks like. We really want people to experience all aspects and know that that may happen in a way that's scaffolded to meet people's best needs.
Wonderful. I am just tickled. This is like the best ending to our DD Awareness Month. So my final question, and I don't see any other audience questions, so this might be our last one, especially given the time. Now, let's think like dream world. Budget is not a concern. So real dream world. What would you all love to see in the future? Well, are there any fun projects you have on the horizon that you're able to share, or some of those lofty projects that you would love to see in your spaces?
I've recently been looking a lot into audio description. So I met with a few folks from some different organizations that explained this whole process to me of having someone, because right now we do have like assisted listening devices that we use. So during Jackets games, that hooks into the commentary. So they can hear what's going on and experience the game. The thing that major thing between that and the audio description is that the audio description would actually have someone come into our arena viewing the game, and then they are describing through a headset to anybody that would need it everything that's going on. So not just what's happening on the ice, but what's happening in the stands. So they would, explain, okay, right now they're doing a t-shirt toss and everyone's, cheering because they want the t-shirt thrown at them. And here's what's happening, on the big screen. Like here's a description of the video that they're playing. And the way it was described to me is like, if I'm sitting there in the audience and maybe I'm a person who cannot see and I can hear maybe what's going on the ice, but then everybody starts screaming, but like that's not really matching what's happening on the ice. Like nothing's going on. But maybe it was like, oh, a fan started the wave in the stands, and that's why everybody's going crazy, even though there's not really anything happening. And it kind of opened my eyes a lot to like, okay, yeah, that would be a very confusing experience of like not knowing what's going on, and you're missing an entire portion of the game because it isn't just what's happening on the ice. The real environment and everything is made by the people around you. So that's one of the big things that I've been looking into recently and trying to figure out how we can bring that into our space, which is not a complicated endeavor, but a little bit, but figuring out what that looks like and cost wise and trying to figure that out. But that's kind of the major next thing that I've been looking into.
Have anything?
You go.
Yeah, I agree. I think certainly from a tactical standpoint, to Quan's point earlier, it's hard to predict our game. And so I think some things that are on the horizon that we're excited about, but still trying to figure out, are ASL interpreters, right? Because it's hard to know what's coming up in our game, right? It's just unpredictable, whether it's going to be a ball or strike or an out or a hit. So figuring out how do we put parameters around that and have those services available in a way that's sustainable. I think it's the same with assisted listening devices, and currently, we can loop feed to our broadcasters or to, our radio play, but it doesn't capture the full experience. I think for me, though, thinking aspirationally, where I'd like to see the future of the game, I started off by saying the most important thing for Quan and I that we think about is how can we learn from everything that we gather during our Disability Pride Night and just all of our initiatives and efforts. I'd love to see more representation of players and of staff to eliminate still some of the taboos that we see around the disability community. I often say, I spent some time in the clubhouse with players. It is loud, it is messy, and I know that if we can just learn and continue to create more inclusive spaces, it's only a matter of time before we find the next Jose Ramirez or the next all-star pitcher who, may be autistic or who may be on the spectrum. I think there's just a world of learning that we can do in order to help people think with a more inclusive mindset. Because I just think we are not tapping into our competitive advantage. And I think, when we start to see more players with various disabilities, I hope that allows more fans to come out, to feel like they belong here, and ultimately to enjoy the game that Quan and I both love.
Well, I think that is the absolute perfect way to end our webinar today. Again, I just want to thank you three so much for being here. I just love hearing from folks that aren't necessarily in your traditional, disability advocacy space, thinking about all populations and really trying to make these nationwide loved activities and events accessible and inclusive for all. So I just want to give another big thank you to Mackenzie, Matt, and Quan for your time today. I know this is busy season for all three of you, so I am so appreciative that you were able to find time to share about all the wonderful things that you're doing. For those in the audience that are here through DCBDD, I did just want to give a shout out. We have our next webinar is coming up on Wednesday, April 29th at 12 o'clock, same time. And we're going to be talking with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities about transition and post-secondary resources. So look on our social media for links to register for that. And if you know somebody that would have loved to be here today but was unable to join at this time, we will have this recorded and put on our YouTube channel and links sent out to presenters if you want to share to anybody as well. We're getting lots of thank yous in the chats. Matt pointed out that their Disability Pride Night this year is on July 23rd. And again, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week. Go enjoy the beautiful day, and go Jackets and go rodeo and go concerts and go Guardians. So thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.